All right. Welcome to the wrap-up video for Season 4, Week 2 of Shadowlands. I almost forgot what I was gonna say there. I've re-recorded this entire section. There was a super dramatic moment where I was supposed to talk about how I didn't quite clear Heroic Sanctum this week, but I felt like it was being a little too unfair to everybody involved. So I'm just not going to do that. Instead, we're just going to dive directly into what exactly we have been doing for this last week, because we cleared normal, Sanctum of Domination faded, and we got through Heroic Sanctum of Domination up to the Guardian of the First Ones. We didn't clear that, and Painsmith was awful. It was really hard for our group, primarily, probably, because I was missing something small. Something small that caused a lot of excess damage that our healers couldn't quite heal through, or whatever. But we got through quite a bit of it, and I expect that we will easily clear the rest of it at the next time it comes around. In other news, I have completed a +10 this week. This is the first time in probably 4 years that I've actually done this as a tank. I have done this as a DPS probably at least once in BFA. Probably not a lot. I didn't spend a whole lot of time in keys in BFA because I just wasn't having fun. The dungeons in BFA were okay, but I wasn't exactly having the greatest time. Shadowlands, same story. I don't care for Shadowlands dungeons. They're not that fun, and they're over-engineered. And I feel like Blizzard knows that, and I think they're probably going to tone them down next expansion. Which is fine. I would prefer, if they want to make dungeons more complex, do it through the affixes, not through the dungeon itself, so that we don't have to deal with it for longer than a few months at a time. Alright, so from the 9, we got a ring on normal. From the Guardian of the First Ones on normal, we got a new staff, which is great. It replaced my 236. I was very happy about that. Sylvanas normal saw me getting a chess piece, which I promptly turned into tier of a very different raid. But that worked really well as well. That replaced probably a 246 or something piece that I got for Sandborn Relics. Following that, I got one thing out of Heroic, which was a neck piece off of Ner'zhul, which I super didn't deserve because I kept dying on that fight. Because if there is anything that I have learned, it's that I really need to focus more when it comes to mechanics that will knock you up or knock you back. We learned this very well in Legion during Antorus, I think, with the 3 ship pod people. Because I got knocked off of that platform all the time. Following that, we had a really, really good week in Mythic Plus. Not the first dungeon, though. The first dungeon didn't actually go that well. And I'll tell you why. The reason it didn't actually go that well is because of the groups that I was dealing with. And this is partially my fault in reality, because I need to pay a better attention to the people that I am bringing into my groups. So, let's talk about our first one. Our first dungeon was and you're going to see this really sped up. But our first dungeon was a Grimral Depot. This was a Grimral Depot +4. I recruited everybody that I needed except for a healer who wasn't signing up in the queue. That's normal. Nobody wants to heal. And then the hunter that I invited decided to invite his priest friend. I probably shouldn't have taken his word for it and should have actually just checked the gear of this person, because why else wouldn't they just, you know, invite them or have them run in through the group finder? But that didn't happen. So let's talk about what we're seeing here. So what I believe is happening is that all of the damage that is being, or all of the healing that's being done by that little blue bar, it says sanguine on it. And I'm pretty sure the reason why that says sanguine is because the priest used mind games. And you'll notice quite frequently that this priest isn't actually doing a lot of healing and is quite often doing 0 DPS. This priest was a rat. They did not belong in this dungeon in any way, shape, or form, and they weren't particularly happy when I expressed those thoughts, because I was doing all of my own healing except for when the priest had mind games up and popped it on sanguine. That's not acceptable for me. I'm trying not to sound like a complete asshole when I say this, but if you're not going to be contributing to a dungeon run, you need to ask before you begin a dungeon run. It is not in any way, shape, or form acceptable for you to be in this dungeon if you're not going to contribute. Following that little discussion, I don't think that the priest knew what a rat was. And the reason I don't think that is because they disconnected, and the hunter said that they had a little bit of an argument. Because when I say rat, what I'm referring to is an individual who is not equipped either with gear or with skills to be able to do the content to which they have chosen to partake. And I think what they thought I meant was, they're just not a good player. And that could be true, but it could also be wrong. But anyways, so they disconnected, and I'm not about to give you loot if you're not going to participate in this dungeon, so I kicked them from the group so that they could not qualify for loot, I don't think. And we continued on. I did fail one of these pulls, and then I came back and redid it correctly the next time, and it worked fine. And then we noticed the boss isn't spawning, and then it's because we only had 98% count. So we go back looking for things, and then I figure out that there is a rope to get you back to the depot. So there are other places in this game where you can't go on in Mythic Plus without a correct, proper amount of count. This is not one of those places, and you actually have to phase back into your old phase to finish getting count. Well, we finished the dungeon, and we actually managed to finish it in time, which, I'm not gonna lie, I'm okay with that. That was a really rough experience, but it left me with a +5 lower Karazhan, and at this point, I'm kind of just dreading it, man. I don't really want to deal with this. I thought that it was going to be a lot easier and that I could just move on with my day. +3, a +4, move on to the +7. That didn't happen because I was lazy in how I was looking for people. So let's talk about this next group, because I fucking love them. They're great. This next group was a priest, a shaman, a demon hunter, and a rogue. Kind of had red flags with the rogue because it's a rogue. But we start the dungeon and I notice something rather quickly. These guys kind of know what they're doing. They're dealing damage, they're interrupting, and they're generally just keeping up with me when I start moving mobs to each other. They're not standing around like nothing happened, and when the priest needs to heal, they're healing. And so I decide to up the ante a little bit and add 2 of these robots together, because they can be kind of harsh if you're not careful. But they do well with that, so I pull an extra group with this additional automaton, stagger the kills to avoid the sanguine puddles, and then as we finish with that, I grab the next pack and I pull it back into the next room. And I'm just gonna skip part of this because it's not that interesting until I pull this last 2 packs, and this goes way better than I was expecting, to be perfectly honest. I thought we were gonna die to this pack, but this group actually kind of is good, and we finish it and we challenge the boss. I don't remember his name, and I'm currently watching this on a really small screen, so I can't actually see what his name is. And we pull him and we just delete him. As soon as he pops evocation, our shaman lusts because they know exactly when they should be lusting in this dungeon. Unless I see that somebody isn't doing what they should be doing, I generally just leave it to them to lust when they feel is appropriate. Because we're still sub 10, I'm not that concerned about when we're lusting. We go into Medivh's room and watch this. This is sped up, but this only lasted about a minute in real life. This was a very quick Medivh. These guys, they wanted him gone because they didn't want to deal with any of his shit. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I don't want to deal with Medivh's shit either. So, we didn't. And the entire time, at this point, I was okay with this group, so okay with them, in fact, that I just started shit-talking with them. Like, shit-talking the rogue because it's a rogue, and he deserves it just because he's a rogue. And we're still doing really well, and I love groups like this, and I know they're not all gonna be like this, but I like this one. Next we killed the Mana Devourer, and then I'm gonna skip to the next section of this. Kill the Mana Devourer, pull the next pack. And then we're going to go up this section here, and we're going to pull both of these. This was terrifying because these guys can hurt. They can absolutely drop health in this group. And they did. They dropped 2 guys instantly. And I kind of felt like that was going to happen, but not to like that extent. But anyways, so they get up and I'm just like, all right, well, let's do the chest because we need to get through this. And we focused down a mob. I targeted it and used my skull macro thing that's set up here. And then our demon hunter dies again because the king did his one shot. And then we killed the king and we finished this section and moved on to the final section with Vizadum the Watcher. This also went really well. I mean, like half the group died at the end, but like, you know, it happens. Vizadum the Watcher is not a very forgiving boss because Legion was 100% the time of one-shots. If there's a thing that is happening, it's probably gonna kill you. Like that's kind of how Legion was. So we pulled this final group, he casts this thing, and we all have shadow orbs, and half of our group just gets deleted. but we plus 3'd the key, so I was okay with it. And this group, I said, hey, it turned into a junkyard. And junkyard's kind of a free key, so I'm like, if you guys want to go and do a junkyard, let's go and do a junkyard. Anyways, so they were okay with that. They were all over that because junkyard is a free key, as I said. All right, so we begin this +8 junkyard, and it's going really well. I'm going to speed this up a lot because there's not a whole lot of interesting anything going on in this dungeon until the end. I take what I consider to be a normal path, but I didn't really look at a route for this dungeon too closely. Like, I have the Dratnos one in MDT, but I didn't really spend a whole lot of time looking at it. And the reason I didn't spend a lot of time looking at it is because I kind of thought I understood how this thing worked and the count that was needed, and I was vastly mistaken. The reason being is because if we cut here to the end of the dungeon, you'll notice we're at 78%, and we didn't quite finish count, which I think is what cost us the +3, but I don't know for sure because I don't want to look up the number because I don't want to be super depressed about it. So we went around and we got the rest of the trash and we ended up +2ing the dungeon. But that gave me my first key that was +10. And that +10 was a Lower Karazhan. And if you remember from last week, Lower Karazhan is not exactly a place that I've had great luck with. But let me find that footage and we'll go through it and I'll explain why. All right, so let's look at this Lower Karazhan. Again, I'm going to speed up the footage because the moment to moment isn't actually that interesting. If somebody would like to do a critique of it, like Shaw, you're more than welcome to. Or Dratnos, if you would like to tell me what I'm doing wrong, you're more than welcome to. I keep everything visible so that you can see what not to do when I screw up. But anyways, so let's talk about the affix real quick. The affix that you get when you get to +10 and higher, because it's very neat. And granted, the last time that I actually seriously interfaced with an affix above +10 was probably not Kahuni's, but the one after that. The haunted one with the ghosts. And since then, I've maybe interacted like here and there with a couple of them. Like, I think the portal one I did a little bit, but not often enough, especially in BFA, to actually do anything with it. And I hadn't interacted with any of the ones from Shadowlands. Except for, I think maybe I've done one of the ones with the big red boys that give you a lot of like health and mana regen or something, whatever they do. Anyways, so I pull this dungeon and we're going through things. We're going through things in a very different way than I'm used to. Because the way that I've always done Lower Karazhan, until just recently when I was prompted to change by virtue of a Dratnos video, is I used to go through, do the opera show, and then I would proceed up, do Maiden, and then I would go down and do Ottoman, and then back up to Morose. This wastes a lot of time and makes you go through a lot of places where you probably don't need to. And I've recently, even after I recorded this footage, found that there is a very powerful death skip because where the entrance is a blessing and a curse in disguise. But anyways, so the bane of my existence, the background singers, again kill me in this dungeon, and then we pull another Dreadlord, and I'm gonna be real with you, killing these guys, not that hard at +10. I've heard it becomes nightmarish at higher difficulties because they can do that like swipe thing that you get from Torghast where they like siphon off your health, except for like you can't interrupt it or stun it or whatever. And you just have to DPS them down faster than they can heal themselves, which gets really, really hard. But anyways, so pull the flashlight, boys, and then yeah, these guys also hurt. You'll notice my stagger bar goes into the red quite often. And I'm tossing kegs as quick as I can just so that I can get my brews back faster so that I can reduce that as quick as possible. Something you'll also notice here, I'm also critiquing myself, is that Celestial Brew is not being used on cooldown, which is a problem because that's my main mitigation. Though maybe it didn't feel right in the moment. But anyways, so I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Then we pull Maiden of Virtue, and she just goes down. She just gets deleted by this group. This is not the same group as I had before. They're not quite as good. They're not a 20k DPS rogue. But then we pull Morose, and then we end up... I didn't know this. I did not know that at 60% he just breaks all the traps. I didn't know that. And so we had to deal with that whole thing. If I had known that, I would have pulled that very differently. But now that I do, I will in the future and make it less stressful for me. But anyway, so we pull through the kitchen and then down the stairs to Autumn and the Huntsman. I've never done this before, but it's a really slick route because I don't like the nopes and the nope webs. So I'll probably do this again in the future. It worked really well, but it got very confusing because I'm used to having to turning right and pulling two groups and then going left and pulling the other like 6 or 7 or whatever it is. But that didn't work. So we pulled Ottoman, we killed Ottoman, and then that was it. We finished the dungeon and it worked really well. It worked surprisingly well, actually. We didn't manage to like +2 or +3 yet, but we finished it, and I'm proud of the fact that I finished a +10 this season already. Especially as a tank, because I'm not actually that good at tanking yet. I am getting better. Like, I'm seeing improvements every day. And I'm just so happy that you guys decided to come with me along this ride. And I've re-recorded this video like 4 times, so if you could leave a like and a comment and just like tell me things that I can do to improve, be constructive, that'd be great. Share it with your friends if you think that I have a dreamy voice, which is probably nobody, but yeah. And next week we'll be starting with this week's vault. That is not happening this video because this is all getting recorded prior to Tuesday, and it should be up sometime on Tuesday. Except it wasn't up on Tuesday at the time that I thought it was going to be up because it was exhausting. So make sure to like and sub, share it with your friends, share it in your Discords. Do something a little bit different. Probably not a different class because I actually just don't have time to do another class right now, because school's starting up in 2 weeks and I've got a packed schedule, a whole 14 credit hours this semester. I am not excited, but I am excited to be finishing out this season before Dragonflight, where I hope to be going back full-time. That is my current plan, to go full-time, tank for my guild, and be that competent tank that they need and that they definitely deserve. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.